There's a strange kind of peace that settles in after 60. It doesn't arrive all at once. It tiptoes in quietly, like early morning light filling a room before you've even opened your eyes. And when it does arrive, something inside you shifts. You stop caring quite so much about pleasing everyone. You stop chasing people who don't even glance back, and little by little, you start cutting people off. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but out of something far better, self-respect. For decades, maybe you played the peacekeeper. You bit your tongue at family dinners. You showed up to birthdays for people who forgot yours. You nodded politely through conversations that drained you. You said yes when every cell in your body screamed no. But somewhere along the road, probably sometime after 60, the weight of all those years begins to tip the scale. You realize your time is more precious than your guilt. Your sanity is more sacred than someone else's comfort. And just like that, the scissors come out not to hurt, but to prune. You start with the obvious ones, the takers. The ones who only call when they need something. The ones who expect you to bend over backward, but go radio silent when you're the one in need. You've spent a lifetime being available, generous, giving. But now you check the caller ID, roll your eyes, and let it ring. Not today, not anymore. Then there are the subtle ones, the chronic downers, the passive-aggressive relatives, the friend who always finds a way to remind you of what you haven't done, what you don't have, or how lucky you are while pretending it's all just friendly concern. You know the type, the one who smuggles insults inside compliments. You used to shrug it off, maybe even laugh along, but now you feel a tightening in your chest every time they open their mouth. So you stop picking up, you cancel that lunch, you take a rain check that never gets rescheduled, and oh, does it feel good. Not in a vengeful way, not in the way of someone keeping score. It feels good the way an old pair of shoes feels when you take them off after a long day. Like you can finally breathe, like your body is whispering, thank you. Because here's a truth nobody tells you, aging sharpens your instincts. You start to see patterns more clearly. You start to hear the tone beneath the words. You recognize when someone is truly happy for you versus when they're just pretending. And you get tired bone, deep tired of pretending you don't notice. You also get real clear about time. You start counting summers, counting birthdays, counting how many more chances you'll get to say, I love you, to the people who actually deserve it. That's when things really change, when your calendar starts to feel sacred and you stop penciling in nonsense. You begin to guard your peace like it's a treasure, because it is. There's a woman named Celia I met at a local book club. 73 years old, laughed like thunder, dressed like a sunflower. One day she said, I stopped calling my sister 3 years ago. She never had a nice word to say, always made me feel small. Then one morning I thought, why am I still trying to earn love I never received, so I stopped. Best decision I ever made. Nobody argued. We just sat there nodding. Every woman in that room had a story like Celia's. A friend they'd outgrown, a cousin who turned every visit into a competition, a coworker turned, friend they finally let fade into the background. And not one of them regretted it. That's what they don't tell you about aging, that some of the best decisions you make are subtraction, not addition. You start cutting people off, and suddenly you've got more energy, more room in your day. You wake up and you're not dreading that phone call or that visit. You're not rehearsing fake smiles. You're not tiptoeing around someone else's moods. You reclaim your mornings. You eat what you want. You walk the dog with your phone in your pocket, not clutched in your hand. You stop apologizing for wanting peace. There's power in that kind of stillness. Sometimes, of course, guilt tries to sneak back in. You'll hear someone say, but they're family, or, but you've been friends for decades. As if history should excuse toxicity, as if blood automatically entitles someone to your time, energy, and mental space. But you've lived long enough to know better. You know that just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they get to disrespect you. You know that just because you've known someone for 50 years doesn't mean you're obligated to keep tolerating their negativity. Loyalty isn't slavery, forgiveness isn't foolishness, and self-respect isn't selfish. People often ask, don't you miss them? Sure, sometimes. But what you miss more is the version of yourself you sacrificed to keep them around, the one who over-explained, who walked on eggshells, who edited themselves for fear of being misunderstood. You miss the peace you never had while trying to make someone else feel better. When you finally cut off someone who needed to go, it's not a loss, it's an upgrade. You might even notice your health improving, less tension in your shoulders, fewer headaches, a stomach that doesn't twist into knots at every incoming text. Science has a name for it, emotional hygiene, but you just call it peace. One day, you wake up and realize you don't have to answer every call. You don't owe anyone an explanation for putting yourself first, and the sky doesn't fall when you say no. Nobody drops dead because you skipped the family reunion. The earth keeps spinning, and your heart beats a little lighter. You fill the empty spaces with better things, a walk with a friend who listens, a cup of tea and a good book, a garden you never had time for before, conversations that feed your soul instead of draining it, moments of laughter that don't end with a sting. And here's the most surprising part. When you cut off the wrong people, the right ones have more room to enter. You reconnect with someone who always made you feel warm but drifted apart. You meet a neighbor you never really noticed before. Someone calls just to say they were thinking of you. You feel seen, not used, valued, not managed. You stop dreading your phone ringing because the people on the other end aren't energy vampires anymore. They're people who lift you up, who laugh with you, who tell the truth but never to wound, and they don't take offense when you need space. They get it, they're older too, and let's not pretend it's always clean. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes you second, guess yourself. You wonder if you were too harsh, too abrupt. You replay the last conversation, searching for clues. But the silence that follows, it's like honey, sweet, thick, slow, healing. That's your answer. Not everyone will understand why you pulled away. And that's okay. You're not responsible for their understanding. You're responsible for your peace. You're responsible for the years you have left, for the laughter you want to hold, for the rest you've earned. By the time you reach 60, you've seen enough to know this truth. Not everyone who started the journey with you is meant to finish it beside you. Some people were only there for a season, some for a lesson, and some, well, they should never have gotten past the welcome mat. But you didn't always know that. Back then, you kept inviting everyone in, pulling up more chairs to a table that was already full, setting plates for people who didn't even bring a fork. But now you get selective. You look at your emotional dining room and realize it's time to clear the clutter. You remove the loudmouth who never let you speak, the guest who always left a mess behind, the one who never thanked you but always asked for more. You dim the lights, close the door quietly, and take your seat at a cleaner, calmer table. You breathe and you wonder why it took you so long. Here's something else they don't tell you. When you start cutting people off, it's not just about who you remove. It's about who you become in the absence of their noise. You discover parts of yourself that were buried under other people's drama. You hear your own thoughts more clearly. You trust your gut without needing a second opinion. You laugh louder because no one's sitting there waiting to judge you. You cry freely because there's no audience analyzing your tears. You start living on your own frequency. And let me tell you, it's sweet. Some people think that cutting people off is harsh, that it means you're bitter. But it's actually the opposite. It means you've finally found your boundaries. It means you've stopped believing the lie that kindness means self-abandonment. It means you've figured out that inner peace is not something you find. It's something you protect. There's a retired teacher I know named Harold. He told me once when I turned 68, I made a list. I wrote down every person who made me feel heavy. Then I asked myself, why do I keep lifting what I could lay down? That list changed his life. He stopped visiting a cousin who always made snide remarks about his weight. He stopped answering emails from a former co-worker who only wanted to vent. He even left a men's group he'd been attending for 10 years because he realized they were all stuck complaining and nobody was growing. Now Harold spends his mornings walking the park with his dog. He volunteers at the library. He started writing poetry again. And the best part, he said, is that he sleeps better not because his bed changed, but because his conscience did. That's the real gain. Peace isn't just about quiet. It's about alignment. It's when your life finally fits you. When you're not squeezing into relationships that don't feel right. When you're not twisting yourself into knots to keep other people comfortable. When you don't feel guilty for saying, this doesn't serve me anymore. And let's not confuse this with arrogance. You're not cutting people off because you think you're better. You're cutting them off because you know you're finally enough. That's a big difference. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who never respected them to begin with. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. You just need to honor the life you've got left. And some days that means sitting in the sun, sipping your coffee, and letting the world spin without you fixing it. One woman told me she stopped talking to her daughter-in-law not because she didn't love her, but because every conversation ended in stress. She said, I realized I was trying so hard to be accepted that I kept swallowing my own voice. One day I just stopped, and I haven't lost sleep since. That's the thing. You can love someone deeply and still choose distance. Love doesn't always mean access. In fact, distance can sometimes be the most loving thing you do. It gives you both room to breathe. It removes the pressure. It clears the fog. And in that space, you might find forgiveness or understanding, or simply a quiet that doesn't demand explanation. And as you grow older, you start needing less noise, less fuss, less pretense. You stop trying to change people. You stop expecting apologies that never come. You let go of the imaginary version of them you've held on to and finally accept who they are or aren't. And that acceptance sets you free. You'll notice something else. As you cut off what no longer fits, you attract what does. It's almost magic. You find yourself in deeper conversations. You meet people who listen without fixing, who laugh without mocking, who show up without keeping score. You discover a different kind of companionship, one rooted in mutual respect, in peace, in presence. And sometimes it's not even about new people. It's about rediscovering the people who were always good to you but got drowned out in the chaos. The old friend who always made you feel seen, the neighbor who brought soup when you were sick, the quiet cousin who never judged you even when everyone else did. They become louder in the silence, and you cherish them more. You start realizing that connection isn't about quantity, it's about quality. 5 deep conversations in a year can feed your soul more than 5 shallow ones in a week. You learn to value presence over performance, truth over tradition, and joy over obligation. Some people won't like the new you, the one with boundaries, the one who says no, the one who doesn't flinch at silence. Let them go. You've spent enough of your life apologizing for being tired or different or unavailable. You've earned the right to choose peace, and if someone calls you cold, so be it. If they call you distant, let them. If they call you selfish, smile and sip your tea, because they're not the ones paying the price for your exhaustion. You are, and if cutting them off means you finally get to live lighter, laugh easier, sleep deeper, then it's not a loss, it's a blessing. You also realize that the most precious thing you have isn't your money, your home, or your achievements. It's your energy, and when you waste it on the wrong people, there's less of it left for what truly matters. So you become protective, not paranoid, just selective. You spend your energy like it's gold because it is. And one day you look around and realize you're not lonely, you're free. There's a difference. Loneliness is what you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't get you. Freedom is what you feel when you're surrounded by space that honors your peace. So if you're over 60 and you've been cutting people off lately, don't second, guess it. Don't apologize, don't explain, just smile, breathe, and enjoy the quiet. You've earned every second of it. And if someone ever asks why you're so careful with your time now, you can look them in the eye and say, because I finally realized how little of it I have left, and I'm done wasting it. Now, hey, if this resonated with you even just a little, go ahead and subscribe. No pressure, just peace. And maybe tell me in the comments, who's the one person you should have cut off years ago?